Today we continue on with our NHL Season Preview series, and today we're looking at the New York Islanders. They were one goal away from going to the Stanley Cup Final. Can they get over the hump this year and achieve that dream that's been building since Lou Lamoriello's taken over this team? We'll get into that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, our season preview series continues today, and we head to Long Island to take a look at the New York Islanders. So first, we're going to recap last year in the 56-game shortened season, take a look at how things went, look at the results. Then we're going to take a look at how this team has changed, look at the players that are no longer here, the players that are new to the team, and then we're going to look at the projected lineup as well as make a few predictions on how we think they're going to do for the coming season. So first up, let's get into the 2020-21 recap here for the Islanders. Of course, they had a pretty solid year. They ended up finishing fourth in the newly formed Eastern Division. 32-17-7 was their record for 71 points. There were certainly points in the year where it looked like they were going to finish first, second. It was really quite tight, and they did have a bad spell down the stretch leading into the playoffs, which ultimately dropped them down into fourth place. So ultimately, though, this team is built for playoff hockey, and they showed it once again, obviously going deep into the playoffs, losing in the third round, the Eastern Conference Final, to the eventual Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning in Game 7 by 1 goal. So they were that close to defeating the Cup champion Lightning. They're probably the team that came the closest. They certainly came closer than what they did in the final with the Montreal Canadiens. So ultimately, you could say that, you know, perhaps there's an argument to be made that the Islanders might be the second best team from last year based on their playoff success, or certainly, you know, top 2 or 3 for sure, depending on how you want to rank them against the Montreal Canadiens. But at the end of the day, they had a real solid year. They scored 156 goals, which was down a bit for 20th best. They also only allowed 128, which was second best. Since the Lou Lamoriello and Barry Trotz era began, this team has been really, really solid defensively, and they continued that. Power play could be better, but wasn't horrible, 18.75%. The PK, again, was solid, which is another good defensive statistic here of 83.7%. So at the end of the day, once again, the Islanders showed that they were just a little bit of offense away from really becoming the elite team of the Eastern Conference and potential Cup champions here. Now, looking at their scoring leaders from last year, they were led by their top center iceman and probably their most dynamic player, I think it's fair to say, Matthew Barzal, with 17 goals, 28 assists for 45 points. So Barzal leads the team in assists and points in those categories. Josh Bailey was next, only scoring 8 goals, but putting up 27 helpers for 35 points. And then Brock Nelson was next with 18 goals, 15 assists for 33 points, and Brock Nelson led the team with those 18 goals scored. So, of course, they had some offseason business to take care of as well. Before we get into the players that left, let's take a quick look here at the players that they actually retained, and which was a couple of key guys with Anthony Beauvillier and Adam Pelech, who were scheduled to become restricted free agents. Both signed new deals and remained with the club on Beauvillier's case a couple of years, and Pelech's case longer term. Of course, they both re-signed Kyle Palmieri and Casey Cizikas as well, and Lou Lamoriello liked to drag that on well into the offseason before they really shed any insight on what was happening with those players. There was, many of us felt that obviously that they were staying because they never signed elsewhere, but it was weird that we took so long to find out what was going on there. But at the same time, like I said, Elliot Friedman speculated early in the offseason that Lamoriello was working on a significant trade and didn't really want to tip his cap for what they had for cap space or anything like that. He was trying to keep that secretive. I mean, anybody that's followed Lou and the Islanders know that he does not divulge anything. He likes to keep things very tight to the vest, keep a very small, trustworthy, small circle of, trusted advisors that works with him. And you don't really get much information out of that when it comes to leaking information. NHL insiders probably have the toughest time getting info out of the Islanders or Lou than anybody else around the NHL. So now let's take a look at how this team has changed. Take a look at the players that have exited the organization this past offseason. Of course, in my opinion, we're going to call this offseason a little bit of Lou Lamoriello magic as far as the exits go. He was able to shed contracts that really were hurting him cap-wise and didn't really hurt them talent-wise. At least that's how I feel about it. So Jordan Eberle becomes expendable in the expansion draft. He goes to Seattle. Of course, they exposed some other players as well that were certainly interesting choices, including longtime player and fan favorite Josh Bailey. But Eberle ends up being the pick by the Kraken. He was able to send Nick Leddy to Detroit, and they get back Richard Panik in that deal. But obviously, as much as they kind of wanted to trade Leddy, but they need to replace him, which is tricky. But at the same time, they had to get rid of that cap hit, and he was able to make that happen. Travis Zajac ends up retiring. No big loss there. Braden Coburn, not signed anywhere, so I'm not sure if he's retiring or what his status is. Again, he was a deadline acquisition that I'm not even sure if he played. If he did, it was not much. And he was actually able to shed the contract of Andrew Ladd. Ladd was not going to be eligible for long-term injury reserve because he technically was healthy, and he found a way to get the Coyotes to take that contract on. Had to pay them a number of draft picks to do it, but still, to shed Eberle, Leddy, and Ladd and create that cap space that was so necessary, absolutely Lou Lamoriello magic. There's a reason why he's the reigning two-time back-to-back general manager of the year here, in my opinion. I know he's pretty old school. He's been around the league a heck of a long time. He, obviously has some strict rules. Might be hard on some people's heads, but he gets results. And at the end of the day, he gets the job done, which is the main thing here. At the end of the day, it is a business after all. Now, looking at the new additions to this team, of course, we got Zdeno Chara being the main offseason kind of bigger name acquisition here, along with Zach Parise, I guess. But Chara certainly can probably still play a fairly significant role. He still played a lot of minutes in Washington last year after departing the Boston Bruins. So that's going to be interesting. Obviously, like, they're trying to find a left shot D who can take on some of those minutes that's left behind by Nick Leddy. And I'm not really sure that Chara is the exact guy they had in mind when they went into trying to replace him. But at the same time, he is still somewhat capable. They're going to have to do this by a little bit more by committee. But Chara will be one heck of a mentor for some of the younger D as well. Even guys like Pelech and Pulock, who are pretty established as a solid D pair, one of the more underrated D pairs in the NHL, in my opinion, can still learn a lot from a guy like this. Obviously, like I said, they're solid D men. But Chara's been around longer than most of these guys have been alive. So at the end of the day, he's a wealth of knowledge and can be a great mentor and leader for them. That's something that they could use back there for sure. Of course, like I said, Richard Panik comes over from Detroit in the Leddy deal. They also add Zach Parise as a UFA after getting bought out by the Minnesota Wild, which was a surprise move to see Parise and Suter both be bought out. Not a surprise to see him end up in Long Island by any means. Obviously, we know the old connection between Parise and Lou back to their days with the New Jersey Devils. So again, not a huge surprise. And Parise was almost traded to the Islanders about a year ago, last year, at the trade deadline for Andrew Ladd. But there was a lot of other moving parts and picks and money that just could not get sorted out completely. So it never ended up materializing. Now they also have Erik Gustafsson, defenseman, who's kind of bounced around a bit here, had his most success with the Blackhawks. Last year played with Montreal. Is there on a PTO. We'll see if he gets a contract or not. They don't have a ton of room, but they might be able to squeeze in a veteran D as maybe a number 7 guy. I don't see Gustafsson taking on a regular role. Pretty good on the power play, good puck mover, good passer. Not really great on the skating aspect of it. Not really fair. I think it's fair to say he's not great defensively. So to me, a bit of a liability. You got to start him in the right spots. Really limit his ice time, and you can maybe make a role for him. But you got to be careful there. You give him too much, and you're going to get bit defensively. And we do need to pause for a moment here as well and acknowledge one of our channel sponsors, Exter Smart Wallets. Top Shelf Hockey is proud to be sponsored by Exter. Forbes calls Exter the most successful smart wallet brand in the world. They certainly have high-quality products, high-grade leather. You can put all your cards in your wallet with RFID protection, and you can track it worldwide. That's the best part. You don't have to worry about losing your wallet and not being able to track it down. They have a great selection of products to choose from here, a variety of colors and styles, something to surely help for everyone. As you can see in the demonstration here for the product I have, this is a beautiful packaging, high quality. When you open it up, you get a high quality wallet with lots of slots for your cards. you have yourself a money clip if you want to carry cash on you here as well. And certainly, as you can see, the quality is outstanding. And here you can see the switch where you can help open up your cards. You just one little click and boom, everything fans out right in front of you. Easy to access. Your cards are protected. And here's the back where you have yet another slot. A terrific overall product, and I can't recommend these enough. Extra ships worldwide, and you can check out the link down below in the description as well as the pinned comment to buy yours today. So thanks very much for checking that out. If you're interested in getting any further information or making a purchase, there is a link in the pinned comment down below. So certainly check that out. I'd greatly appreciate it. Now let's jump into their projected lineup here, courtesy of dailyfaceoff.com, and see what they're projecting right now for the Islanders lineup to look like when we get to opening night. Now, not a huge surprise here, but we have Matthew Barzal, Anders Lee, and Kyle Palmieri as your top line. You got Nelson, Bailey, and Beauvillier as line 2. Line 3, you've got Pajot, Parise, and Oliver Wahlstrom. And on line 4, you got Cizikas, Martin, and Clutterbuck. Line 4, you know exactly what it's going to be. They've been together a long time. When it comes to the other lines, I wouldn't be shocked if Wahlstrom and Palmieri eventually maybe end up swapping spots. Hard to say, but I know they're both going to be auditioning for that opportunity to play with Barzal and Lee. So we'll see how things go through the rest of the camp and preseason. On the blue line, no big surprise here. You got Pelech and Pollock, Green and Dobson, Chara and Mayfield. Now, of course, between the pipes, you get Ilya Sorokin and Varlamov, of course. So, in my opinion, how's the season going to go for the Islanders? I'm projecting them to be one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. I really think the Islanders are going to have a solid season. Even if they do fall a little lower in the standings than I'm predicting, they will once again be a handful in the playoffs. I really think this team is built for playoff hockey. As long as they get there, they'll be one of my favorites to go, as far as the conference final, if not the Stanley Cup final for sure. But I'm going to say they're going to be one of the top 1 or 2 teams in their Metropolitan Division. I think Carolina is one of the main teams that will compete with them. But at the same time, you can't rule out teams like the Capitals. The Penguins and Flyers, I don't know. They're a little bit harder to read, in my opinion. In my opinion, the Penguins might be taking a step back. We'll have to see if I'm right on that or not. And the Flyers made a lot of moves, but are they the right moves? And a lot of that's going to ride on Carter Hart and whether or not he can bounce back. So to me, I really think the Islanders will be either first or second in the division. And like I said, they're one of the favorites, in my opinion, to win the Eastern Conference. You have to think with the Lightning, they're still one heck of a team. They lost their complete third line. They have a different backup goalie. I think it's fair to say Tampa might be slightly weaker, but not drastically. But considering how close the Islanders were to be taking them out before, I think they could possibly do it this year. But I do have a couple of roster concerns, which they hopefully can address throughout the season. For starters, on the left side of the blue line, you've got Andy Green and Zdeno Chara. They're both up there in years. I wouldn't want to be in a situation where they're too much relied upon here because, for one, at their age, they're more likely to need more breaks. So they might have to be rested throughout the years, make sure they're fresh for the playoffs, especially after not playing an 82-game season the past 2 seasons. Secondly, they're going to be more prone to injury possibly the older they are. And thirdly, you just need that energy back there. So not that they're not capable, they are. I just don't want to rely too heavily on them. So I'd like to see them add a left shot defenseman sometime through the year if they're able to. But I don't think Eric Gustafsson, the guy who's in camp on a PTO, is really the answer there. So we'll see. Now the other thing is, will any of their younger D kind of step up and take on more of that role? I mean, they've got guys like Pelech, Pollock, and Dobson are not overly old. Obviously, Dobson's still kind of the newer guy in the blue line, but they have some other interesting blue line prospects that are looking for more of a role here that might be able to jump in there. We'll have to see how that goes. Now, the other big thing is, can they score more goals? Like last year, that was their downfall. I mean, clearly, this team was just, one more score away from putting themselves over the hump and getting past Tampa onto the Stanley Cup final. Would they have beaten the Montreal Canadiens? You could probably make an argument that they might have. I mean, it would have been interesting to watch for sure. But considering the defensive style and how they played, I think they probably would have won, but you can't really say for sure. It's all in hindsight, and you really can't go, make any kind of certainty on that. But at the same time here, like I said, one scorer away, and it was rumored for months now that Lou was trying to add that other scorer to give them one more weapon. I know he was real keen on Kyle Palmieri. Things didn't start great after the acquisition, but he did have a pretty decent playoff. Now, I guess there was a lot of talk with Tarasenko coming over. I wonder if they could still explore that. I'm not really sure that they will. It's really hard to say. A lot of it's going to depend on how they're doing, how the Blues are doing. Will that be discussed further? I don't know. But the other thing that a lot of people got to remember here is they went a long stretch last year without Anders Lee. Now, Anders Lee is a proven goal scorer who's, at one point, I don't know if he's still that player, but he has hit 40 goals before. Should be able to get a 25 to 30 goal guy. Maybe just having him back and hopefully staying healthy all year and being available for the playoffs would be what they need, because he missed the entire playoff round last year. He was out before the end of the regular season, missed the playoffs, and that was a big blow to them. So, at the same time, though, if you look at their regular season results, there's an argument there that, yes, Lee was there, for enough of it that they could still use somebody else, and you could probably, be fair to make that assessment. And who that's going to be, will it be Oliver Wahlstrom? Can they address this internally? If they can, then that saves them the trouble of going out and finding a deal, making a trade, possibly disrupting team chemistry, using any future assets, etc. That's something that they want to try to avoid. So if they can get that internally between Lee and Wahlstrom and have the other guys, even like Palmieri, have a full season and step up, then you know what? Maybe they will be a more offensive team without making a trade. So let me know what your thoughts are in regards to that. But those are my concerns. But I do think that they can, like I said, they can be addressed. I still think the Islanders are one of the top contenders in the Eastern Conference, and I think they have to be really heavily considered as an Eastern Conference favorite and possibly one of the ones battling for the Stanley Cup at the end of the season. So let me know what your thoughts are on the Islanders. Where do you see them going this year? Can they be more offensive? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and we'll discuss further. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We will keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.